How many red flags does a nation ignore before political violence stops being an aberration and starts becoming the predictable consequence of its own paralysis? Just after midnight in Cincinnati, a 26-year-old individual walked up to the home of Vice President JD Vance with a hammer and began smashing windows. Not one, not two, multiple windows, more than $28,000 in damage before the Secret Service moved in and took them down. Vance and his family weren't home, which is the only reason this didn't become a national emergency with a very different headline. The suspect, William DeFore, also known as Julia, identified as transgender and has a long documented history of severe mental health instability. Prior incompetency rulings, violent episodes, a pattern of behavior that should have triggered intervention long before he reached the vice president's property. But like so many cases in this country, the warnings were ignored, the paperwork was shuffled, and the responsibility was kicked down the road until it landed in the worst possible place, a restricted federal zone guarded by the Secret Service. And here's the part the media is already soft-pedaling. This isn't the first time we've seen a case where an individual with complex identity profile, a long trail of instability, and clear warning signs slips through every institutional checkpoint. This is a recurring pattern in how these cases are handled. Hesitation from agencies, reluctance from courts, and a media environment that treats certain details as too sensitive to report plainly. That hesitation doesn't protect anyone, it endangers everyone. If this attack had happened at the home of a Democratic vice president, the coverage would already be wall to wall. We'd be hearing about extremism, radicalization, and the collapse of political norms. But because it happened to JD Vance, a conservative vice president in a conservative administration, the story is being treated like a quirky local crime report instead of what it actually is, a direct attack on the home of the second highest office holder in the United States. This wasn't a prank, it wasn't a misunderstanding, it wasn't a confused wanderer who stumbled onto the wrong property. It was a violent breach of a protected residence, and the country barely blinked. That silence is the real warning sign, because when political violence becomes as selective in its outrage, it becomes normalized in practice. Next, dispatch at 1. See you there.